Okay. So in this 26th verse, we are discussing how bhakti is greater than Gyan or Ashtanga Yoga. The result of bhakti is far, far more greater. And then there is a verse in Srimad Bhagvatam. Actually, I think Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also quotes this in the purport. He quotes this verse, Akama Sarva Kamova Moksha Kamudardi. And then this is a very, very interesting verse. Yat karmabhir yat tapasa jnana vairagyascha yat yogena dana dharmena shreyo bhiritarairapi. Yat karmabhir, the result which is obtained by karma, or jnana, or vairagya, or yoga, or dan, or dharma, or itarairapi, any other paths. Krishna says, Sarvam mad bhakti yogena mad bhakto labate anjasa. Anjasa means very easily. Sarvam, all the results of the other paths, they are achieved by mad bhakti yogena, by the practice of bhakti, by my bhakta. Labte, labte means he achieves. Anjasa, anjasa means very easily. What does he want? If a devotee wants swarga, he'll get swarga. If he wants apavarga, he'll get apavarga also. And if he wants madhama, if he wants my abode, then he'll get that also. Kathanchit yadi vanchati, if he wants. Because generally a devotee does not want any of these things. He doesn't want swarga, he doesn't want apavarga, he doesn't want dham also. If there is no service, I don't want it. Which verse says this? Anyone remembers that verse? So there's a verse which Kapila had told to his mother. That is the very, very profound verse describing the primary characteristic of devotional service. Salukya, Sarishti, Samipya, Sarupya, Ekatvam, Apyuta, Diyamanam, Na Grihnanti, Vinamat Sevanam Jana. My devotee does not want any of this if there is no service involved in that. So that's how Kapil Dev, he is describing how bhakti is far, far superior than any other paths. And in this, yeah, Chakravarti Thakur writes, according to some authorities, the worshippers of Paramatma realize a visible form of the Lord, since that is described in Shruti, such as Purusha Shukta. Bhagavatam also describes Kechit Swadehanta Hridayavakashe Pradesh Matram Purusham Vashantam. This verse had come in the second canto. The yogis, they see the Lord in their heart, Purusham Pradesh Matram, as a small finger like Naye. And he is Chaturbhujam, Kanjarathanga Shankha. He has Shankha Chakra Gada Padma in his hands. Gadadharam Dharanaya Smaranti. Because Bhagavan is both Brahman and Paramatma, he is said to be invisible. When the Lord becomes visible as avatar, he is both visible and invisible because he contains Brahman and Paramatma. Which verse in Bhagavad Gita says that Bhagavan is the foundation of Brahman? Anyone remembers a verse from Bhagavad Gita where it is described? 14th chapter, last verse says this. Brahmano hi pratishtha. Yes. So I think Prabhuji was telling that. Brahmano hi pratisthaham. I am the foundation of Brahman. So Chakravarti Thakur quotes this verse in the beginning also. In the chapter on Bhagavad Gita, that is Bhakti Yoga, that is 25th chapter, Kapil Dev tells, Pashyanti te me ruchiranyam vasanta prasanya vaktranulochanani rupani divyani varapradani sakam vacham sprahaniyam vadanti. O mother, devotees see my attractive red eyes and my smiling face and my spiritual forms, which bestow blessings. They speak pleasing words with me. This is in context to Kapila describing what devotees achieve. They see my form personally. Pashyanti, they see my form. They see my beautiful eyes, smiling face. They see my beautiful transcendental spiritual forms. So that is the glory of Bhakti Yoga. He continues the description in the next verse. Etavaneva yogena samgraheneha yoginaha yujyate abhimato hyartho yadasanga tu kritsnashah. Translation. Somebody can read.
The greatest common understanding for all yogis is complete detachment from matter, which can be achieved by different kinds of yoga.
So now Kapil Dev, he is speaking about the Gyan path in this verse from 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. These verses, he starts speaking about Jnana. And in this verse, he says, in all the paths, whether it is Jnana or Yoga or Bhakti, detachment is the common denominator. One has to become detached. Which verse? Which verses tell that Bhakti brings about detachment? Anyone remembers any words which does Bhakti, generates detachment?
Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitagam.
The main line.
Hare Krishna.
Janayatyasu vairagyam.
Janayatyasu vairagyam jnanam cha yat ahaitukam.
Thank you. Janayatyasu vairagya. Vairagya come naturally. Any other words? Anyone remembers? There's another verse. Bhakti pareshanu bhavo virakti anyatra chaisha trikaeka kala. Bhakti, Para-isha Anubhav and Virakti. These three things, they come automatically, just like when we eat, three things they happen. Tushti, Pushti, Shuddha Apayo Anughasam. Tushti means satisfaction, Pushti means nourishment, and Shuddha Apayo Anughasam means the hunger decreases with every morsel. So that's very, very essential. The detachment has to come. So this verse he says, Etavaneva yogena, in all these paths, either jnana or yoga or bhakti, sangraheneha yoginaha. Sangraheneha means in all these paths. Yujyate abhimato hi artho. Certainly, one thing is achieved in all things, a sangha, detachment. Complete detachment is guaranteed by any spiritual path. By practicing of Ashtanga yoga, nowadays people they do yoga, all the yoga clubs are there. If this is not happening, that means they are not practicing yoga. Nowadays people are doing yoga for all the different things. They are doing yoga for increasing their enjoyment. That is not the purpose of yoga. Detachment has to happen. So Prabhupada writes, three kinds of yoga, Bhakti, Jnana, Ashtanga, they all try to get out of material entanglement. Either a devotee or a jnani or a yogi. If that is not happening, that means there is some problem. So Prabhupada writes, how different practitioners, they become detached. What Jnana Yogi thinks, oh, matter is false and Brahman is truth. So he tries to detach himself. What Ashtanga Yogi thinks, he tries to control the senses. But a devotee, for him, the primary goal is not to control the senses. The primary goal is not to become detached. What is the primary goal of a devotee? Primary goal of devotee is to serve Krishna. Jnana and Vairagya, they are natural byproducts of the path of bhakti. A devotee does not have to endeavor for becoming detached. Therefore, it appears that the activities of devotees are far better than those of jnanis and yogis. So that is very, very important to understand. The path of bhakti, it is very, very powerful path. And then Prabhupada continues the same theme. The purpose of all yoga is to is to detach one's sense activities from this material world. He continues. in 28th verse. Jnanamekam parachinair indriyair. I'll recite the verses. Somebody can read the translation. Jnanamekam parachinair indriyair brahmanirgunam avabhatyartha rupena bhratya shabdadi dharmina. Translation.
Those who are averse to transcendence realize the supreme absolute truth differently, though speculative sense perception through speculative sense perception, and therefore because of mistaken speculations, everything appears to them to be relative.
Yes. So jnanam, those who are practicing this jnana marg, ekam parachine. Parachi means what happens to them. What is the primary focus of the jnanis? They are detached. They are averse. We have heard in the 25th chapter beginning how Devahuti begins her prayers to Kapiladev. Anyone remembers that? What does she say in the beginning?
I am disgusted from this material.
Yeah.
Something like that.
He says, I am disgusted. Nirvinna. Nirvinna means disgusted. So this disgust is the primary qualification for jnana. Complete aversion. Prachina, aversion. Complete aversion from indriya, from sense objects. And attachment to Brahman, who is Nirgunam. So those who are on the path of jnana, they are averse to sense gratification, and because they are absorbed in speculation, because of mistaken speculation, what they feel, bhrantya, mistaken. They are mistaken in their understanding. They think everything is because transformation of matter, so we don't have to do anything with this matter. So bhrantya shabdadi dharmina, they for because of this mistaken speculation, everything appears to be relative. Prabhupada writes. Actually, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that everything is coming from me. Aham sarvasya prabho matta sarvam pravartate. And whatever you see, Arjun, in this world, it is just a spark of my splendor. Ekam shena sthito jagat. Everything is sustained by him. But that does not mean that he is in everything. Which words in Bhagavad Gita, actually in one place, Bhagavad Gita Krishna contradicts himself in two consecutive verses. Anyone remembers that? Anyone knows that? Krishna is contradicting himself in two subsequent verses. ऐसा नहीं कि एक शुरू में बोला एक एंड में बोला तो भगवान भूल गए होंगे क्या बोला इसलिए उल्टा बोल दिया थोड़ा. Two consecutive verses, he is speaking different things. In 9.4 and 5, I think he says, Matsthani sarva bhutani, and then he says, Rachamatstani bhutani. Everything is in me, and everything is not in me. So how is it? He says, Pashya me yogam aishwaram. This is my mystic power. So everything is sustained by him, but he is not in any of that. In the form of Brahman, he is pervading entire universe. But he has his personal existence also as Bhagavan. So that is understanding. So in the purport, actually, what Prabhupada is describing, he is describing the Mayavad philosophy. And there are two things in Mayavad. There is one principle of Mayavad, that is Vivartavad. Vivartavad and Parinamvad. There are two things, Vivartavad and Parinamvad. So Vivartavad says, which is the conception of Mayavad, that actually it is all illusion. Before telling Vivartavad, I'll tell Parinamvad. Parinamvad, what is Parinam? Parinamvad means this philosophy, which is given by Vyasadeva, describes that Brahman never changes, but the Shaktis of the Lord gets transformed and takes different forms. That's the actual ideal philosophy. इसको बोलते हैं परिणामवाद. But Vivartavad says, actually, what Mayavadis say, it is all illusion. Brahma Satya, Jagan Mithya. Whatever we see is illusion. This world is illusion. Because Brahman never transforms. That is one theory of Mayavad, Vivartavad. Brahman never changes. And whatever we see in this world, it is all illusion. But actual understanding of Vyasadeva is the creation takes place by transformation of the energies of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport is basically describing that. So I'll not go into the detail of the purport. It's a long purport Prabhupada writes here. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, I have a desire to perform bhakti, have heard about it and understood it. So Devahuti is saying, I have heard about bhakti, I have understood bhakti and I will practice bhakti. But थोड़ा कुछ इच्छा भी होती है ना, अच्छा वो लोग क्या बोल रहे हैं, वो लोग क्या बोल रहे हैं. So that is what Devahuti is going through. Curious about Jnana and Yoga, I have heard about them and understood them. But in Jnana, I have not understood completely about non-dual knowledge. That is Advaya Jnana. What is that Advaya? That Advaya Jnana, she is requesting Kapila Dev to explain what is that Advaya Jnana. So in these verses, Kapila Dev is explaining Advaya Jnana. So Kapila speaks about the Jnana approved by the followers of the theory of Vivarta. Vivarta means the Mayavad theory. What is called the one knowledge or non-duality or Brahman falsely appears by error of the jiva to be object endowed with qualities by the senses which are turned towards material enjoyment stimulated by Maya Shakti. So what the Mayavadis say, we have heard this many times. Absolute truth covered by Brahman becomes avatar. Covered in the mode of goodness becomes avatar. Absolute truth covered by the mode of passion becomes all the living entities. Absolute truth covered by the mode of ignorance becomes the dead matter. That's the Mayavad philosophy. So this is what is described here. When the absolute truth becomes covered by the material qualities, then different forms appear. Actually, the scriptures they say, Vyasadeva says, the absolute truth never gets covered. The Shaktis gets transformed. The Jiva thinks the drum is nice, this woman is beautiful, the milk is tasty. In the absence of all senses, because of the absence of the knowledge of distinctions, only the one knowledge, the Brahman exists. Then is there complete falsity in the objects perceived through error? No. The answer is no. It is not that when they get covered by the modes, they become different objects. No. Error simply means to perceive a shell to be silver when one is not aware that it is actually a shell, and one then thinks that is silver. The existence of the shell and silver are not denied. So, if somebody is saying that it is just an illusion, that means the original must be there. If we say that, oh, this world is illusion, it is a reflection, that means original must be there. But they say, no, original doesn't have form and the world is just a reflection. The world is just a reflection. I think Raghunandan Ramprabhu is asking a question. Why and from where this Bhranti arises? That is the desire of the living entity. The desire of living entity is to become God. That's why we have come in this world. Jivara Swarupa Krishna Nityadas, one forgets that desire. One wants to lord it over the material nature, wants to become God, and that's why we have come in this world. So Krishna, being a merciful father, he is giving us the philosophy by which we can prove that. He's so very merciful. If we want to forget Krishna, Krishna will give us intelligence so that we can forget him. Ye thamam prapadyante tam sthaiva bhajamyaham. Whatever we desire, Krishna reciprocates accordingly. Because living entities want to surrender, he will, if they want to surrender, he will send all the resources, he will send his representative, he will send scriptures. And if you want to forget him, he will make our brain fertile so that we can concoct some philosophy. That is how this Mayava theory has come up. Okay, so he continues. Somebody can read the next verse. Translation. Okay, I'll read the verse. Yatha mahanan aham rupa trivrit panchavid aswarat ekadasha vidhastasya vapurandam jagadyatah.
From the total energy, the Mahat Tattva, I have manifested the false ego, the three modes of material nature, the five material elements, the individual consciousness, the 11 senses, and the material body. Similarly, the entire universe has come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Now he's describing that everything is world starting from Mahat Tattva, Mahan Aham Rupa. Everything has come from the Supreme Lord, and from Supreme Lord as Mahavishnu comes Mahat Tattva. Basically Prakriti, then from Prakriti comes Mahat Tattva. And then from Mahat Tattva, the same chart which we have heard many times in second canto, and then in the previous chapters of the third. We have heard this philosophy many times. This whole chart, which is given in Subodhini, from Prakriti, then Mahatattva, then Mahatattva in the mode of ignorance, goodness, then passion, then ignorance. Mahatattva in the mode of ignorance is called as Ahankara. So all that things are described here in this one verse. The entire universe has come from the Supreme Lord. So the same description is given. Now, continues. In the 30th verse, he describes how to see that Brahman from whom the entire universe is manifesting. He can be seen by faith. एतद् वै श्रद्धया भक्त्या योगाभ्यासेन नित्यशः समाहितात्मा निस्संगो विरक्त्या परिपश्यति. Translation.
This perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who is already engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment, and who is always absorbed in thought of Supreme. He is aloof from material association.
Okay. Etadvai, this will be known certainly by whom? By a person who has Shraddha. Etadvai, Shraddhaya, Bhaktya. By the practice of yoga, which is mixed with devotion. This is the description of the Jnana and Ashtanga happening here. So, but Jnana and Ashtanga without Bhakti will not give the result. So, Shraddhaya, Bhaktya, Yogabhyasena, Nityashaha. And of course, Prabhupada gives the complete devotional translation here. This perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who is already engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment, and who is always absorbed in the thought of Supreme. He is aloof. Samahitatma Nisanga. Nisanga means he is aloof from material association. He is Nityashaha, he is always absorbed in the practice of devotional service, yoga abhyasena, and his mind is fixed. Samahitatma. He is completely virakta. So Srila Prabhupada writes, the atheistic mystic practitioner of yoga cannot understand this perfect knowledge. We have heard many times, again asking the same thing. Which example is given to explain that jnana without bhakti is useless?
Beating the empty husk.
Beating the empty husk. Thank you. Why now? सबको याद होना चाहिए था. कम से कम 10 बार तो सुना है हमने ये. स्थूल तुषावघातिनाम. Beating the empty husk. So if somebody is not believing in Krishna, he will not get the result of yoga or jnana. Only persons who engage in practical activities of devotional service in full Krishna consciousness can become absorbed in samadhi. So Prabhupada describes about, he focuses on the word samahitatma, samadhi, how one can be in samadhi. And samadhi means to be always absorbed in Krishna. So after describing this, in the next verse, he says, thus I have explained to you about jnana, by which one understands Prakriti and Purusha. Ittetat katitam gurvi jnanam tat brahma darshanam yenanubudhyate tattvam prakrite purushasya cha. Translation.
My dear respectful mother, I have already described the path of understanding the absolute truth, by which one can come to understand the real truth of matter and spirit and their relationship.
Okay. So now he is concluding by describing, I have already explained to you this path of jnana. Jnanam iti etat kathitam. I have described to you, O Guruvi. Guruvi means, O respectful mother. I have described to you this path of jnana, by which one can understand Brahma Darshanam, yena anubudhyate tattvam, by which the absolute truth can be understood. And one can understand the relation between Prakriti and Purusha. So after speaking like this, now Kapila he goes on to describe various paths to realize the Supreme Lord. Jnana-yogasya-mannishto nairgunyo bhakti-lakshanaha dvayorapyeka evarto bhagavad-shabda-lakshanaha. Translation.
Philosophical research culminates in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After achieving this understanding, when one becomes free from the material modes of nature, he attains the stage of devotional service. Either by devotional service, directly, or by philosophical research, one has to find the same destination, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah. Same thing Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita also in the 5th chapter. Either one is practicing jnana or yoga, the result is the same. Because Arjun asks a question. Sannyasa karma yogasya nishreyasa karavubhav tayostu karma sannyasat karma yogo shishyate. This is the reply of Krishna. Arjun had asked, which is better? Sannyasam karmanam Krishna punar yogam. You are telling one side to practice sannyas, then you are telling me to practice yoga. What is this? So Krishna says both lead to the same result. Sannyas and yoga, jnana and bhakti, they both lead to the same result. But bhakti is better because bhakti can be performed by anyone. One cannot stop working. And only foolish people, they discriminate between Sankhya and Yoga. Sankhya Yoga prathika bala pravadanti apandita. Sankhya and Yoga are different, only less intelligent people say. Because ultimately, ekam apyasta samyak ubhayor phalam, both get the same result. So here also the same thing is described. द्वयोर अपि एक एव अर्थ, दोनों से एक ही अर्थ मिलता है, either by devotional service or by jnana, by bhakti or jnana, same destination. What is that destination? Bhagavad Shabda Lakshana. So either one practices jnana or bhakti, the path is same. And that's the Prabhupada, he describes one achieves bhakti after practicing many births of jnana. Which words Prabhupada is paraphrasing here from Bhagavad Gita?
बहुनाम जमाना मनते ज्ञान
Bahunam Janmanam Ante, after many lives of philosophical research, it is not so easy to come to the practice of devotion. It may take lifetimes to come to this understanding. It is not that, oh, bhakti is so easy, anybody can do it. No, it is very difficult. He says, such serious student, only a serious student can come to bhakti yoga. And how one comes to bhakti yoga? ऐसा मतलब जन्मों जन्मों ज्ञान पे ज्ञान मार्ग करेगा तो ऑटोमेटिकली एक दिन भक्त हो जाएगा. What is understanding? Can a jnani come to the path of bhakti just by practicing jnana? How will he become a bhakta? Any thoughts?
He has to get the mercy of Bhakta.
He has to get mercy of devotees. He has to come in association of devotees, as we have heard many times in the third chapter, in the third second canto, third chapter also. Wait a minute. Just a minute. In the second canto, third chapter, also Krishna says the same thing. Shukadeva Goswami is saying the same thing. It is describing the practice of the Devta worshippers. And in that he describes that some people they worship this Devta to get this result, and kuch log alag alag cheezein karte hain. So how one will become devotee? Is it that apne aap ban jayega devotee? I think which verse he says like that? हाँ नहीं इसके आगे वाला है. Yes. 2:3:11. How a devata worshipper will become devotee? एतावानेव यजताम इह निश्रेयसोदयः भगवती अचलो भावो यद भागवत संगतः. Unless one gets association of Bhagavata, a devata worshipper will never become devotee. Similarly, a jnani, unless he gets the mercy of a devotee, will never become a bhakta. So it is not that automatically he will become devotee one day. No, it will not happen like that. This practice, this conversion from jnani to bhakta requires an intervention of a bhakta. Prabhupada writes, the opportunity for direct touch with the Supreme Lord is given in Bhagavad Gita, where it is also said that those who take to other processes, namely the process of speculation and yoga, have much trouble. Chapter 5th verse says that क्लेश अधिकतरस्तेषाम, अधिकतर क्लेश होता है उसमें. It's too much of troublesome path. And whatever result one achieves by practice of other paths, everything can be achieved simply by the practice of devotional service. Because ultimately Krishna is the source of Brahman also. Okay. He continues the description in 33rd and 34th verse. Kapila describes what are the various spiritual practices by which the Lord can be achieved. Yathendriya prithak dravya dvarai artho bahugunashrayah eko naneyate tadvad bhagavan shastravartmabihi. Translation.
A single object is appreciated differently by different senses, senses due to us, due to its having different qualities. Similarly, the supreme personality of Godhead is one, but according to different scriptural injunctions, he appears to be different.
Yes. Path of the Lord, to achieve the Lord, is there are different paths. The Lord can be perceived by many, many different paths. What are the different paths? He describes in the next verse. क्रिया क्रतुभिर्दानै तपस्वाधाय मर्षणै आत्मेन्द्रिय जयेनापि संन्यासेन च कर्मणां योगेन विविधांगेन भक्ति योगेन चैव हि धर्मेणोभय चिन्नेन यत् प्रवृत्ति निवृत्तिमान् आत्मतत्त्वावबोधेन वैराग्येण दृढेन च ईयते भगवानेभिः सगुणो निर्गुणस्वदृक्. He gives a list of the various practices which people they can do to achieve the Lord. Translation. Translation, please. Somebody can.
By performing puritative activities and sacrifices, by distributing charity, by performing austerities, by studying various literatures, by conducting philosophical research, by controlling the mind, by subduing the senses, by accepting the renounced order of life, and by performing the prescribed duties of one's social order, by performing the different practice, by performing devotional service, and by exhibiting the process of devotional service containing the symptoms of both attachment and detachment, by understanding the science of self-realization, and by developing a strong sense of detachment. One who is expert in understanding the different processes of self-realization realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is represented in the material world as well as in transcendence.
Yeah. So he gives a list of various processes, whatever is there in the Vedic scriptures, everything is described here. Ultimately, one takes to Brahman, one takes to Bhagwan, the path of spiritual life. The paths may be different, but they ultimately take one to Bhagwan. So I'm not going to the detail of this. We'll just end this chapter quickly. The last section describes who can and who cannot receive this knowledge. So in the 37 and 38 verses, Krishna says, Kapila says, thus I have described to you the different types of bhakti, the natures of time. I have described about the samsara, about jiva, how the jiva gets entangled and achieves this destination. And then, as Bhagavad Gita also Krishna tells in the end of Bhagavad Gita, you should not give this knowledge to those who are envious, who are not austere. Idam te na tapaskaya, na bhaktaya kadachana, na cha shushu shavevachyam, na chamam yabhyasuyati. One does not envy me, give this knowledge to that person. जो devotee नहीं है, envious है, उसको बिल्कुल मत दो. Same thing he is telling his mother in 39 and 40 verses. This instruction is not meant for the envious, for the agnostics, and for people who are unclean in behavior, nor is it for hypocrites or for people who are proud of material possessions. It is not to be instructed to people who are greedy, who are too attached to family life, nor to people who are non-devotees and who are envious. So then, what is the qualification? Who is qualified to receive this knowledge? Shraddhanaaya bhaktaya vinitaanusuyave bhuteshu kritamaitraya shushrushabhirtaya cha. This instruction should be given to faithful devotee who is respectful to spiritual master, who is non-envious, friendly to all, and eager to render devotional service. Who else? Bahirjata viragaya shanta chittaya diyatam nirmatsaraya shuchaye yasyaham prayasam priyah. It should be imparted by spiritual master to people who have taken to Supreme Lord taken the Supreme Lord to be more dear than anything, who are not envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, and who have developed detachment. So these are the qualifications of one who can get this process of devotional service. And then he ends this chapter. He says, Yaidam Shinuyadamba Shraddhaya Purusha Sakrit Yova Viddate Machittaha Sahi Eti Padavim Chame. So this is the conclusion of the entire description of Sankhya. This is the Falashruti. Yaidam Shunayad, O Amba, O my dear mother, whoever hears and meditates on this with Shraddhaya, with faith, with affection, who remembers me, who chants and hear about my glories, what will they achieve? Sahi ete padavi chame. They will surely go back to Godhead. So that is the conclusion of entire Sankhya philosophy. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.